Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham and elsewhere, if elsewhere seems interesting enough. So we'll see if there's any elsewhere worth it. Such, sort of, anyway. Old Fan has been uploading my old videos to an archive channel, and that's sort of been interesting because I've watched a few of them and taken notes, and they were pretty good videos, actually. Yeah, I've had my moments in the past, especially the swimming videos. Yeah, I like them. But anyway, yes, so my index is a little bit full of all kinds of different kinds of videos. And, but anyway, maybe we'll do some of that. Maybe I'll play an old video or something, just see if there's something to comment on. See if I inspire myself, kind of a thing. So I did make a video earlier in the week to the Modern Mystic on the rich thing again, a subject for which he doesn't wish to have a conversation, at least not with me, and that's, whatever. And just the whole way people frame it, I mean, it's they think the rich are, first off, these people that sort of earned it, and he brings up Bezos and certain people, and I've pointed out how they didn't really earn it. I mean, Microsoft started with a gimmick, renting an operating system to IBM. I mean, Bill Gates is rich because he snookered the executives at IBM. He fooled them. They didn't know the technology he did, and he tricked them. It's that simple, and ended up with a copyright to basically the wheel of technology, and screwed us for decades, and still tries to. Not with brilliant innovations, but with extortion. Your software won't work without my shitty operating system. Ha ha. He's made a joke out of the human race. And Bezos is a complete failure. His original idea didn't work. They needed to find some new gimmick, so they used the infrastructure for selling books to sell everything else in the world. And he did it based on the fact that the government said we're going to make all of the stuff sold online tax-free, no sales tax. Without that tax exemption, Amazon would have probably never gotten off the ground. So, little gimmicks, they get billions of dollars. It's a silly game. We shouldn't be rewarding people like that. It's nonsense. It's not the subject, though. The subject of the wealthy is the 90% of the money that's held by people who never earned it, like Donald Trump's. Or they inherit a huge millions of dollar head start, and then we're amazed that they turn their millions into a billion, when we know that compound interest will do that. That it's a huge advantage in life to have a net, and that's just a truth. When you've got to risk the welfare of your kids, you're not going to take that. You're not going to be nearly as bold, and you're not going to do what needs to get done to be one of these rich cunts. And if you have any kind of integrity, you couldn't be one anyway, because the only way you can really get super rich is you have to super screw all the people who made you rich, your employees, the people who really did the work. So anyway, it's a disgusting subject. It's disgusting that people have this admiration for these people who have a birthright entitlement to lord over us and pretend we're in a fair fight. It's disgusting. And the fact that people defend it is just they're more disgusting than the rich people, in my opinion. The people who defend the rich are more disgusting than the rich. But anyway, so I did do that video. And the audio was sort of crappy, and I apologize for that. And the last What the Fuck was kind of crappy. And so I'm using an earphone, because until I figure out my microphone issues, that I'll have to do. I mean, this microphone sucks too, so I have to work something out. But anyway, hopefully there won't be the same problem. Maybe there'll be some other technical problem, but it shouldn't be the same technical problem. Anyway, so Glenos made a video. No, that's not it. There, that's it. Doing Jordan Peterson, just a synopsis of the interview, and I thought he did a good job of condensing the argument, mostly. So I'll leave a link below to that. I guess I would be more I mean, the whole problem is the Jordan Peterson guy wasn't paying any attention to the real concept of this idea that there's nothing bad about not having pleasure. It's not a bad thing. It's not torture. It's not a negative thing to be deprived of something you can't miss. It's impossible to harm something that doesn't exist. So not only is it impossible to torture them, it's impossible to disappoint them. It's impossible for them to feel sad or, oh shit, I was almost there, or any of that shit. It just isn't possible. They don't really miss it. It's like the people get killed in horrible ways and stuff happens to them. If it happens really quick and they never knew it happened, they really didn't miss anything. It's not like they're sitting somewhere going, oh shit, I was going to win the lottery tomorrow. Yeah, you know, it's just not happening. That doesn't happen. And so, you know, missing out on goods can't be considered a bad. It's just stupid to think so. Where having bads is bad, and preventing them has to be good. If it would have happened and you stopped it from happening and it would have been bad, there's no other way to look at that except for it being a good, unless there's this circumstantial catch-22 bullshit that people like to play, like, you know, the bad thing is you did a bad thing, but or you did a good thing and it ended up bad because the person you saved or something was a child molester or some kind of dopey, you know, convoluted story or narrative. But again, the argument against that is we're talking about real world circumstances, and you know, people who die of cancer or something, there wasn't some other, like, they didn't need to die of cancer to save the world. There wasn't some silver lining to everybody who died of cancer. There wasn't some other story where they needed to do that to save the world from some horrible torture. No, they just suffered and died for no good reason. But anyway, so like I said, he kind of takes care of a lot of that. And I guess I always come down to this imposition argument anyway. It's he was sort of defending against, I probably shouldn't get into all this depth, but it's probably going to happen anyway. You know, there's this argument that if we see logic in preventing a pregnancy, you know, how far are you allowed to go logically, and how far are you allowed to go ethically? And you know, I would always argue that if we're talking about ethics where there's not going to be any civilization tomorrow, then it really doesn't matter, because you're not trying to preserve the idea of a social contract. So if there's not going to be any society, you don't really need the messiness of a social contract, which is some sort of idiotic notion that, well, I can't prove I'm right, so I have to accept that everybody's entitled to an opinion and it's acceptable to have all this error code because we aren't capable of, you know, to some high enough standard, proving what is right and proving what is wrong. And so there's no autonomy, no right to act. And I would argue that's nonsense. I mean, I would press the red button, blow the planet up, clearly violating the social contract. So in my opinion, some kind of notion of some sort of legal entitlement, it gets too messy, because there was presented the argument, Peterson sort of presented, well, what if the person is miserable? And he used an example I thought was kind of bogus, like, oh, they don't have any friends or family. Oh, well, you can live without those things, frankly. They can get in your way, actually. They'll destroy your peace and quiet, not enhance it. So anyway, so I thought that was kind of silly. Like, that's, you know, you don't need to kill yourself if you don't have friends and family. If you have friends and family, you probably do need to kill yourself. Anyway, in some, you know, I'm just in a general sense, I'm just saying, unless you're careful, you know, and you can't be careful about picking your family, so you have to just get lucky. So unless you're lucky, I was lucky. You know, family can be a nightmare, and your friends, you know, again, unless you pick them really carefully, they're, you know, a huge liability. But anyway, and so this example of, well, why not just put them to sleep in their, you know, put them out of their misery in their sleep? And frankly, I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, obviously it's a violation of a social contract in some kind of sense, but this idea that somehow people are entitled to their daydreams about how they're going to be a Jedi tomorrow is kind of bullshit. That's like respecting a retard's wishes or something. You just don't. there's no point if the retard can only say 4 words like "I love life living," "I love life living." Yeah, it's 4 words, and he's banging his head against a wall, you know, all the time. You don't pay attention to what he's saying. You just do the right thing. So I'm just saying, if it's only the social contract that bounds us. There's no rational contract that says somehow we have to respect the silly ambitions of some Muslim who thinks he's going to go meet Allah or something. So that's kind of just bullshit. I get the point that it's this right to impose, though it gets to be a really messy argument in the circumstance where we do have a right to be logical and to take our rational thoughts to their conclusion, and to understand that if everything is built out of nonsense, if their argument is Jehovah says so, I think I would be insulting my intelligence to say, oh wait a minute, I can't act because they said Jehovah says I can't, or something. I mean, it's just not it's not a good enough answer. So you have to be logically persuaded that their opinion is worth something, if you're going to allow it to inhibit an action. But again, this is in a context of recognizing that you can't do it incrementally, because then there's no social contract and then we're all dead, which is okay, right? It's just the right answer for me either way. I mean, if everybody starts behaving as if there's no social contract, I guess I still win, in the sense that it will accelerate a doom that that's probably a good enough answer. Maybe. Probably not. I mean, you really have to do it still has to be somebody to clean up the mess. I mean, somebody to make the red button and then somebody to press it. So anyway, that does get to be kind of a complex subject of the whole idea of what's restraining us, respecting the truth, or respecting the bullshit circumstance of existing in a society full of assholes and nutcases. Yeah. Anyway, good video. So the other guy, that or GT something or other, whatever. Sorry, I just don't remember names. Bob, we'll call him. The guy whose kid died. Yeah, it's not a great title. Anyway, so a bunch of people in my comment section were talking about how, oh yeah, he's a great anti-natalist, good to have him on board. I never watched the whole video, I still haven't, but I hear that he's for making some anti-natalist army by birthing it. And yeah, that's just such a silly fucking idea. I mean, you're just saying, how can anybody have any of the story right if they think it's okay to create children, indoctrinate them in the sense that you're brutally honest with them and saying, look, I had you because you're part of an army of miserable people who recognize that life sucks and feel bad because all the animals are getting tortured and it's really ugly here and horrible here. And I did it, because you're just supposed to be a soldier, and hopefully you won't be made totally psychotic by this brutal initiation into your existence on Earth. And clearly you need to be competent enough not only to make really great arguments to try to persuade people, but you might actually have to go in a war or something, kill the Muslims or something. I mean, you might actually have to get involved in some sort of really ugly politics and nasty business to get the job done. Yes, that's my present to you. I can't do it. See, I'm too incompetent to persuade people, but somehow my prodigy is going to be able to do it. And I'm going to arm them with what? Hopelessness. And, trench foot. Yes, you're going to spend your whole life in a fucking war trench, mourning the suffering that you can't do anything about, and fearing that you're not going to be able to do anything to stop the future suffering. And I'm doing that, for the cause. I'm going to impose this on you. So anyway, it's the argument of a total cop-out argument, total bullshit. The argument is we have to convert people, one way or the other. No matter what philosophy, even if you're a person who believes in life is great. You've got to be scared to death by Muslims. You've got to be scared to death by people who are still living in whatever 1642 and have no desire to do anything but to be obedient to some dogma passed down through the centuries. I'm just going to live like Daddy did, grow a beard and talk shit to my wife and ignore my kids when I'm not molesting them. I mean, that's just, So the argument is we have to have the tool here. The only legitimate tool is persuasion, of saying to somebody, look, I see this. I've lived a life. I've experienced experiences. Some of them were quite horrible. And I see all this jeopardy, and I see all this imposition, all this recklessness, just throwing people into a circumstance and saying, you're going to like it, into worlds that are really quite ugly. I wouldn't want to live in them. It's like you're inventing worlds like it's on a computer simulation, and you can make, Sim City, and you make the world with all 800-pound people, and that fart all day, and you're going to inject somebody into that world and say, learn to be 800 pounds and like it. Learn how to smell farts and like it. I mean, that's a cruel thing to do to people, to say, like it or lump it. Be tortured by it, be tormented by it. Anybody logical can understand that's the game we're playing here on fucking Earth. All this little circumstantial bullshit of whether you're lucky enough to be born in a civilization or you're unlucky and you get born into hell. And so the argument's got to be made through arguments, just trying to appeal to people's reasonability and say, look, it's just logical. You don't gamble with somebody else's money. And if you do it, you only do it because you're so damn sure it's going to be a good thing, that you're going to make money for them. You have to be really sure you're going to beat the house. And can you really be that confident unless you're some sort of religious nutter? Again, and so that's the same argument that every civilized human's got to fight with the uncivilized. Every person who believes in any progressive idea at all knows that their adversary is this huge ignorance that's taking over the planet, the idiocracy, the meek-minded are going to inherit the earth. The weak-minded. And that's the tragedy here. That's the threat no matter who you are. Whether you're anti-natalist or not, it's the same threat. And anyway, but this whole idea, these idiots who think they're going to win a race war, they're going to win the ideological war by breeding ideology. If you have to breed it, you're hopeless. If you can't convert the existing, if you don't understand that that's the only way you're really going to win, then you're going to lose. And all you're going to do is torture your fucking kids. You dumbass. Ugh. So anyway, yeah, so he wants to do it in a live room, and maybe I will in the future. But that's just such a moronic position to have. I just find it so abhorrent that somebody would have children with purposes like this. I'm going to construct them into a cyborg for good. I mean, it's just so fucking delusional that in the first place you can do that. Character has to be earned. And frankly, if you want your kid to have any of it, you're going to torture it. And that's tragic. And it's sad. And it's pitiful. And it should be the last of last resorts. You haven't even fought in the war for a day, and this guy's already making excuses for why he doesn't have to. I'll just create children to do it for me. It's just so fucking lame. Alright, so the Mystic did make a few videos that are just nothing. He complains about other people's comments on message boards, on news sites, The Guardian or something. What the pop culture is generating as arguments, and mocks them. And yet he doesn't say anything himself. He doesn't construct any arguments himself for anybody to mock. And when he does, I appropriately call them what they are, which is silly and bullshit. So it's just another person calling bullshit who's just full of bullshit, and is such a coward. lots of fighting words, but no will to fight. No will to take responsibility for them in the real world. Just in a little, hidden corner, a little protected corner. So anyway, this is kind of lame. So yeah, I did do a physics video or two. Last one was an overview video, quite good actually, I think, in terms of attempting to make the rational argument. So this is always about some sort of attempt to get to people in some sort of way, and how difficult that is to communicate. So that might be relevant to, these are some of the old videos, so maybe I'll play one of those, but maybe I'll play some of this first, because I never got around to finishing this. So this is an old, it's not that old, Carrie McCarpet. So she started off talking about Bitcoin, which was really weird, and how she sees some sort of negative thing in the sense of people taking control and having systems that allow them to be separate or something like that. I can't remember the exact argument. And never really got to the real problem with most of these, whatever they call them, currencies, these Bitcoin kind of things, which are, they don't function as currencies. They function as commodities, not currencies. And that's not how a currency has to not change in value. That's the value of a currency, is something that you can depend on when you're making a transaction, that it's not going to, you're not going to lose your money by buying cash, that kind of thing. I mean, you wouldn't use cash if you were afraid of the cash turning into half its value overnight before you got to spend it. You wouldn't have any real interest in cash as a mechanism for payment. And all of this is so unnecessary in a way, because it is just a commodity, because frankly you can't convert your money into Bitcoins without paying a fee to do it. So that's the real problem here. It doesn't fix the fundamental problem where you can't convert value into the Bitcoin without having to pay a fee. So how are you saving money? Because you're really not. I mean, we need to be able to store our excess wealth, or our spending money, in some mechanism that doesn't charge us a fee, that just charges the cost of the transactions. And that's what we really need, is a national bank or something where it just, it's a debit card, you have an account, you put your money in. Like pay whatever the toll thing is now, it's all electronic. We need an electronic system like that doesn't gouge us for when we put money into the system. So and then we can make transactions for what they should cost, which is pennies on the dollar, or millipennies on the dollar, actually. Instead of some capitalist exploiting us for 3 or 4%, which is gouging. It's not the cost of what it costs to do, and it's just gouging. So I mean, but that's what we need. We need electronic currency. We don't need some idiotic commodity. Electronic commodities are absolutely useless. So this is just synthetic gold. It's fake gold. It's bought and sold based on what people think they'll trade for in the future. It's like the worst kind of stock. It's going to be the first stock to crash when a crash happens. So yeah, buyer beware. It's a pyramid scheme in the sense that the only way somebody can make money on Bitcoin is they have to sucker somebody into losing money. And that's it. There's no other way it makes money. There's just winners taking money from losers. And that's not a productive system, in my opinion. I don't see any merit in being proud of, well, I made money in Bitcoin by screwing somebody else who lost money in Bitcoin. What the fuck's good is that? Why is that something we need as a society, or as human beings? Let's screw each other over coin. What good is that? That's fucking garbage. So what we need is an electronic currency that's tied to, say, 5 or 10 international currencies, so its price or value can't fluctuate much. I mean, the euro goes down a little, it'll be only how much down in a percentage of all the other currencies, and it would be a quite stable coin. It's always can sell for that. The the origin, the original bank, will always buy the coins back for that market price of the average international currency. You'll always be able to reliably get back your value. And that's the kind of coin we need. Not this stupid phony, short supply bullshit coin that changes value. The whole point of having a gold standard was, in the past, gold didn't fluctuate in price much. But it did cause all kinds of problems when people did dump gold on the market or hoard gold. It fucked your whole economy. So it wasn't a great idea. That's why they got rid of it, because it didn't work. They didn't get rid of it because it worked so well. They got rid of it because it wasn't working so well. Especially when people can figure out how to manipulate the gold market, which they've been trying to do for hundreds of years. So, but the only value was for the period that we, the early 1900s, it had some value because gold was more stable than anything else. But that was only circumstantial. And certainly in the current environment, gold is not very stable, and you wouldn't want your country's currency tied to something that's of unstable value. So anyway, that's enough on that subject. So then she goes on to talk about, she's some sort of nature nut. I mean, I hate to use that kind of rhetoric, but that's all it's. I mean, I just can't believe people. They have all these romantic notions about something that is so brutally cruel. And maybe it's just they never spent any time in nature. Maybe they haven't seen how it really works. Maybe they never really thought about, the fact that the birds make all of those eggs and all of those chicks, and yet there isn't more and more birds covering Earth. So somehow most of them must die, and they don't happen in front of you. You don't get to see it. So I guess it's out of sight, out of mind. You just see the little healthy ones flying around, and apparently the ones flopping on the ground don't last long enough for you to get a glimpse of them before they get chomped. But yeah, I just don't know how somebody can look at nature and say, "Gee, that's a model we need to get back to our roots, our natural roots," and especially a woman, because the natural roots were you have 10 kids and 2 of them survive. That's the natural root. And the mother sooner or later gets wiped out having kids. There's no fun retirement somewhere. Look at the people who are living close to nature, and look how they look when they're 35 years old. Because they're going to look 75. I mean, it's just silly. It's too silly. So anyway, I don't know what is going on about here, but we'll play a little bit. Yeah, that's what we'll do.
That way, because they're used to having that as a motivational drive in their life. So there are a lot of instances we can see where the brain reconfigures itself, and it's really trying to avoid pain. Now, I think that this may be the result of language, in a way. It may be that we can quantify things differently mentally, or it may be completely subconscious and something that was always there.
I don't think there's any we thing. That's the real problem. We're all conditioned very differently. We grow up in very different environments, have very different sensibilities, and that's what the real, the foundational problem is none of the words mean the same thing to us, because in our different environments, the words mean different things. And so there isn't any, we just, the vocabulary is broken because the experiences aren't common. Some of us don't have a great time at Disneyland. And it's just the truth. And some of us never get to Disneyland, and all that kind of stuff. It's all quite nasty psychological ownership, and that most people can never step past their own personal psychology to do any thinking about what life is on this planet, and the fact that it isn't good enough, in the sense that way too many people are living way too meager an existence, and it's just not acceptable.
But we do it all the time. And I suspect it's a product of an artificial life because it is so, it's not useful. And people who meditate a lot and end up moving towards, you know, that state called enlightenment say that what goes away.
Yeah, well, what a pile of shit, too. Meditating has something to do with getting smarter when it doesn't. You know, it's just, you know, it's just a religion. You know, another ritual that people are going to say, it's the ritual, it's all about the ritual, and it's not about the word. You know, it's about the religious devotees who haven't never read the Bible. You know, God is the Word, but I never read any of the words. You know. You go to hell if you eat the apple from the tree of knowledge. Even that part didn't bother them. Why should knowledge be evil? That doesn't make sense.
Is the pointless behavior. And enlightenment is just a state of seeing things clearly. So, for example, for most of us, let's take an everyday situation. You lose your wallet, and you know, if you were seeing things completely clearly, the first thing you do is go, right, okay, let's cancel my bank cards, then I'll do this, then I'll do that. But that's not what happens, is it? You go through a succession of pointless feelings, like, oh, I'm so stupid, I feel so guilty. Did I put it here? No, I didn't. You go off looking for it somewhere else. No, I definitely put it.
Yeah, well, I don't, yeah, whatever. I don't think any of that process is terribly irrational, because the only way we learn is by scolding ourselves and recognizing that those almost lost it things are good lessons. It's like having a little car accident probably saves people from having bad car accidents, because it gives them a little taste. They can scold themselves. You're a little sloppy. You're not paying attention. You got to blah, blah, blah. You got up your game, fucker. That's all, in my opinion, hugely constructive, not destructive. So I don't think I agree with your point again. Anyway, we'll move on.
Are incapable of doing the wrong thing. Some things look wrong but aren't. I'm talking about you're incapable of doing unethical stuff, because, you know, there are situations where you need to hurt someone physically or mentally as self-defense, and actually it's not unethical. It's protecting yourself. But it becomes difficult to do the wrong thing for the reason that when you do the wrong thing, you use up a lot of energy trying to convince yourself that this is okay. You build a sort of mental dam that rationalizes.
All right, so this idea that somehow the evil people have a conscience and that they pay for their acts and all that stuff, like Donald Trump somehow is paying a huge price for his you know, insipidly silly delusional notions of his power and greatness. No, he's a delusional asshole. He doesn't pay any price at all because he has a huge delusional mind. It's why he's as healthy as he is and all that stuff. It's because he hasn't paid any price for it, because his delusion is real to him. So again, I don't agree that the guilty pay. No, the victims pay. Period.
Around it then, because it can never be cleared. And the more things that have a veil of delusion over them clutter your mind and make the space that you've got to operate mentally smaller and smaller until you're very afraid of facing pain because you've got no empirical experience of doing it. The first noble truth in Buddhism is suffering. And I used to think, oh Christ, we'll give that a miss as well. That sounds like Catholicism. But it's not saying you should enjoy suffering, or I don't think Catholicism is either, but...
Whatever. People can argue about what it means. I think I understand it better, you know, through time to appreciate the whole story of Buddha. I think what he's saying, I think, is that there's the suffering you endure, and the suffering you're avoiding. And that's all there really is. You're avoiding poverty, you're avoiding leprosy, you're avoiding this, you're avoiding all these negative things. Or else unfortunately, you fell in the traps. So you're either avoiding the trap of some suffering that's sitting out there that can nab you, or you've fallen into the trap. But that's all there is. There's traps you fall into, traps you avoid, and there's nothing else. And that's all life is avoiding the shit coming to get you and the shit that gets you. And that's it. That's all there is. I think that's what Buddha was saying.
It just happens. But it's saying that you should know that it's an inevitability, and therefore you do have to face it. And if you're able to face it...
No, I don't think that's anything to do with what Buddha was saying. Clearly the end game is the idea of escaping the whole game. And that's clearly the objective, is the singularity of leave me the fuck alone forever. That's Buddha's win, clearly. And it's through this idiotic, unfortunately, it's through this idiotic fantasy mechanism of get burned up the right way, die in a fire, and you're free. Otherwise, you're going to be a cow or something else for a while, and some other charmed animal. So we'll skip over the Buddha bullshit.
Sure. Let's look at how the elites at the moment are corrupted, because the idea that they're just corrupt because they're the elite is a bit short-sighted. Everyone who gets power has to face, their own battle against becoming corrupted.
Look, they were corrupt before they got power, so let's understand that none of them are positively motivated. Everybody who rises in this shit system is like what rises on Google or what rises on YouTube. It's shit. It's a shit competition. It's baby kissing. It's fake. It's phony. Be as fake, phony, and fraudy as possible. Put on a smiley face. Charm your audience with nonsense. Tell them little friendly jokes. It's just crap. It's absolute fucking crap. So it's a crap system that puts crap in charge. So until the day when they actually maybe have a lottery, okay, for leadership, and where we might have the good fortune to have somebody who actually has a thinking mind that does something other than calculate their own interest. But all of these con artists that are in politics, they are not in a competition to do good. They're in a competition to steal and graft out of the system, to either doing it for the ego points, like an Obama, or they're doing it for the fucking money. But they're not doing it for any principle, for fuck's sake. None of them are principled. None.
So it's going to happen to us too if we get power. But let's look at how they are.
Say again, so this absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is just a lie. We've never given absolute power to anybody. If you gave it to Einstein, there's lots of people. I wouldn't say Einstein was the perfect character or something, but he's smart enough to understand what a principle is. And he'd be smart enough to know what a self-interest is, and he'd know what his obligations were. And I'm just saying, I think although it's not a lot of human beings, there's at least 10% of the population that you could give power to, and they would wear it as a burden. They would understand it's a burden. It would weigh heavy on them. And they would take it fucking seriously, and they wouldn't be sitting there going, what's in it for fucking me? So this idea that we're all above, none of us are above corruption or some kind of corruption or something. Like somehow we're changed as a fucking person because we can actually do something in the world. Now, I mean, it's funny because people make all these movies about all these artificial heroes. I watched a couple of the Marvel Comics, Avengers movies or something. I should do reviews on those, but they're just so silly. There's no real point. It's nice fantasy, but yeah, it's just nothing. But these are all people with all these, this heavy investment in this sort of social responsibility and obligation, and I'm of high character and I'm of high integrity, and and yet they don't see that in themselves. They watch those movies and yet they don't aspire to be that themselves. I think people do aspire to be decent and to be winners in a fair fight, to fight an honorable war. I don't think they want to be steroid shot up cheaters.
Individualism is king, greed is good, is an easier way than to face reality and know that actually you're going to have to get on with a lot of hard work now that you've got power. So that's their series.
Well, again, so none of the people have any obligation to do any of this hard work or do any of this. Again, if you breed them, you're pulling them from a swamp, and then you're saying be civilized. They're swamp thing. They're monsters. The system isn't a merit system. The system doesn't go and find the value and rise it to the throne. It's a shit system. Fucking goddamn celebrity, name recognition. You know, she gave a blowjob too, and so now she's famous. You know, now she's worth paying attention to. I mean, that kind of bullshit. Well, play a little more of this.
Delusions. What are our delusions as the masses? Well, I think we're bombarded with complexity. Our lives are so complicated. There's so much work. There's so many emails. There's so many texts. There's so much social media. There's so many fake news sites. It just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I don't think the average person gives a shit about any of that. So I think the average human being is distracted by just keeping their life in order. You know, keeping the roof solid and paying the rent, all that kind of crap. And whatever spare time they have, they indulge in the huge entertainment market. They're not researching anything on the internet. They're not expanding their minds or doing any of that. That's a small percentage, small percentage of the human race.
Retaliation from government that becomes more like a sort of communistic or more like a dictatorship where things are banned. You know, exchange sites are willfully stopped in certain countries, or perhaps governments will have to join up and create one global government in order to regulate corporations working within an entity that extends to the entire global population. That's what the blockchain will be like. Otherwise, they may have to try to shut it down.
So now she's back on the Bitcoin system and this blockchain thing where we store the foundation of a function on our computers, and therefore it can't be manipulated. Yes, openness is a good idea. I don't think you need to do it through a blockchain. I mean, you just need to do it through an accountable system where, you know, our social security numbers and our personal information could all be stored in a place, and you know, we could be legitimized or scrutinized, or what's the word? Filtered or known for who we are. You know, have real identities that were solid on a system, you know, that was reliable and couldn't be fucked with because of the levels of redundancy. So I mean, all of that stuff is good. Having an open government, an open system of accountability is great. So, but you don't need to do it in this whatever B2B kind of way. You can do it in you know, less chaotic ways.
Together, this could be the ultimate reset, because it's really the road to anarchy, and people all want that seemingly, but do they know what it actually means?
Well, there's no road to anarchy. None of that's going to happen. You still have to put real value into any of these fake currencies that, you know, whatever value they make or whatever they generate by stealing somebody else's money. Again, they're not creating anything. So they're no threat to civilization, because civilizations are still fairly productive. They make stuff. Bitcoin's never going to make anything.
You don't get exposed to it because they can't gain, you know, they can't get out there. They're not able to spend enough time on developing their talents. So we will fight against the bland and boring corporate environment that colors our lives at some point. And the other aspect that we'll fight against in terms of free will is the fact that the blockchain...
Well, again, the corporate environment isn't the problem, frankly. It's the people who own it that are the problem. They define the corporate environment. They define the definition of what kind of world we're going to have to live in. The Google strategy of give it away for free, drive everybody else out of business. Amazon's trying to do the same thing now. Their model won't work because they don't have exclusive rights to ad revenue like Google did. It was given essentially the right to put ads on websites and nobody else was, because it looked too much like the Google system. So they were given a copyright, just like Bill Gates, to basically screw us over. And because it's called Google and everybody said, well, it's not evil because it's Google, they assume that it's doing something in their interest when it's not. It's censoring the internet, clearly, creating a popularity engine just like YouTube, deciding what's going to be accessible and what isn't. Again, understand, Google doesn't even index the comment sections on their own YouTube videos. They'll index the comment section on some newspaper site, but they don't index the comments on their own video site. They're giving you the internet, right? Except they're not. And they're doing it so overtly. They're overtly censoring their own comments. And that should be an indication that, well, what else are you censoring then? What else is not on the internet? What else is not accessible on the internet through what is supposed to be this search engine, which is just we'll provide you the internet we think you want, not the one you can search.
Will automate a lot of decisions. In our legal process in the UK, we have judges for the purpose that crimes may be the same or in the same category, but the punishment is nuanced. It should perhaps be changed to suit different situations and the responses and the remorse of different people. You know, you need a human involved in some decisions. Now, it's not that I think there's any way around the blockchain being involved to make the kinds of decisions that will be necessary in this new environment. It's the fact that people are...
Well, whatever. I don't know how she gets to the point where a blockchain is making decisions, so that seems kind of wacky. But frankly, if everybody is aware of what's getting into the program of some sort of synthetic intelligence that would be making decisions, frankly, they're proven to be better decisions. The computer can make the calculations better than we can. First, it can know more than we can know, especially about driving in slick conditions and what the probabilities are of certain actions. The computer knows all of that stuff. It knows the batting averages. It knows whether the guy gets good at hitting curveballs or fastballs. The computer can analyze and choose pitches in the game much better than we can as humans. The humans are the ones that are ignorant and frail in their decision making. The computer's the thing that's going to be doing what we would like to be able to do, which is give me the decision that gets the maximum output for the minimum cost or risk aversion, you know, and you know, we can always program that in. And this idea that we have some innate judgment that will be better than the computer's errors, our errors are going to be more abundant and worse than any computer's mistakes in calculating odds. And that's just the truth. So yeah, bring on the computer judge, thank you. Bring on some guy, some computer that's not going to be a fucking bigot, an ignorant bigot. And I'd argue that 90% of judges are ignorant bigots. They're judges because they said the right thing to the right son of a bitch to get the job. They're agenda whores. They don't give a fuck about. Most of them haven't even read the Constitution, I would argue. I don't know how they really graduated from law school, because they don't know shit about either the world or the law. They're really dumb motherfuckers, generally speaking. Colossally dumb. Well-educated imbeciles, frankly.
Natural environment in which you evolved. Obviously, we've evolved a lot since we lived in the natural environment before tools and language. But what I think happens is you design a tool because you need to, but you don't get a commensurate amount of consciousness to accommodate that tool as well as everything else you were living in. And therefore, when you design any kind of technology, including language, it becomes at the forefront of your consciousness, but it obscures some of nature behind it because...
You know, whatever. Odors. That's right. I think, you know, to have our complex language skills, we actually gave up the sense of smell, because the human sense of smell is so much less than all the other animals. So yes, we compromise some senses to be thinking beings. But this idea that our consciousness has to catch up or something is just nonsense. The little tiny change that took place in the brain was just a tiny change that changed how we used the gray matter, not the creation of the gray matter. Our big brain wasn't what made us smart. A little change that gave us vocabulary is what made us capable of storing information and storing it outside of our brain, which is a huge advantage, and learning from the past, you know, and we're just mimicking that. So we're still behaving just like monkeys, in that we're just mimicking traditions, and we learn how to play the game that's presented to us. And we're presented the game that you're supposed to play as this stupid social construct game of silly notions and rules and optimism and silver lining fables and fables about, oh, we should go back to nature, you know, and die of polio all the time.
Really do have a consciousness budget. You can't see everything. But in order to sustain itself, it robs you of a piece of natural behavior that used to exist. And therefore you feel the...
I'm sorry. I think we have plenty of Homer Simpson natural behavior, so I don't think our lives are in any way diminished because we've lost some of our natural charm of farting in each other's faces. Animals don't live some kind of, people bring up bonobos or something, how their life is so charmed and it's all love and they're all huggy and everything's just swell. No, they murder each other just like the chimpanzees and the apes, other apes, because that's what we are. We're tribal organisms. We lived in tribes and we had to kill the other tribes to survive, period. And that's all it is. People didn't die of old age. They died because some other tribe killed them.
Loss of that natural behavior, but can't see what you've lost because it's behind a piece of technology. So you go looking into the portal of that technology to try and gain it back. But in doing so, you destroy the portal of technology. And how this dynamic resolves itself, I don't know, because I'll give you a real example of television.
Oh, yeah.
That robbed children of their parents' attention. But because everyone in the whole world watches television, children can't understand what they've been robbed of. They just feel...
So robbed of their parents' attention is just so almost hilarious. As if, attention could mean anything with people who don't even want to be parents, most of them. Most of them don't really have some fascination. So, I mean... First off, most mothers weren't very well educated, and their attention didn't do a kid much good because they were just full of nursery rhymes and fables and silly stories. I don't know where you grew up, but when I grew up, all I was fed was a bunch of pop icon crap. You ask a serious question about why do we die or some other question, and you get these mushy, silly answers as, we can go to heaven and play with the other dead things, You ask why is something being tortured and killed? Why do things have to go through those experiences? Well, it's because it's God's will. He has a plan for everybody, and sometimes the plan is you're in a burning building and you have to jump out of the window and land on the roof of a car and die badly. What? They're fables. Parents' attention, frankly. Television was my salvation. It was freedom from this silly, whatever, Stepford father and mother bullshit that you were fed.
Neglected and don't know where it's coming from. However, they feel that...
I'd rather Carl Sagan, as a generic force, parent the world than some mullah, some Catholic bishop or some dopey parent who just preaches what the Pope says.
If they were to become famous, they would get a sense of being loved and a sense of self-worth. The idea that talking to your parents in the televisual age is going to make you feel better doesn't make sense to us. We can't see what's been robbed from us. But Generation X was an entire generation that was labelled attention seekers because we all wanted to be on TV. But that's why, because people do need attention. It was robbed from them. They go into the portal of TV en masse to get back the attention.
Oh, right. It was only Generation X that's attention whores. I mean, again, just bullshit arguments. People have been seeking the same things forever. Fame and fortune. Fame and fortune. Come on, get serious. When I was a kid, I played a board game called Careers or something, and there was 3 things you went after: hearts, fame, and money. And the idea was to get a total of a certain number, and you could collect hearts, or you could collect fame, or you could collect money. And you could collect money by being a shyster or by going to college, and it was a pretty good little life game. But the metaphor was there already. We already know what people are after. So I call bullshit. The problem with Generation X is because there's just no direction in the chaotic world of the internet, and the Twitter notion that you can synopsize every subject into two sentences of rhetoric. The idea that every principle only needs two sentences of conversation. That's their superficiality. They think it's all about good and evil. The Fed did it. 9/11 was an inside job. We never landed on the moon. I mean, just idiotic notions of babble that can be seen for what they are, nonsense, with any kind of, just anything above a completely superficial examination of the facts. And there's no will to read an article that has paragraphs in it.
They think is in there, but as everyone traipses into television and we end up with social media that allows absolutely everyone to be behind a screen, it destroys the portal of technology because it no longer operates as something that can communicate the macro to the micro. Now it is just a second skin. Facebook is really our face. Now that could result.
Facebook is nothing. Yes, it's just a trivial, emoticon website. It's just look at me and I'll look at you. Let's compare. My kids are cuter than your kids. It's just bullshit. So, yeah, but what's the social commentary? You're saying if Facebook didn't exist 40 years ago, people wouldn't be just as sucked into playing these social games? Of course they would. There was soap operas on TV that people watched every day. Fake little voyeuristic nonsense. Let me see somebody else's life because mine's just too fucking boring. So yes, they're all whores for some drama. Maybe that's what Facebook is for. Is let's see how much they're getting screwed over. Yeah, we're winning
physically as individuals and be reduced to fighting each other for resources. Might come to that. Now, I used to make videos about veganism mainly because veganism is a thing that I could see everyone moving to, and I think it's going in that direction because people are prepared to do things that make them healthy and all that, and it's becoming easier to be vegan. When it comes to technology,
all this healthy reasons, yeah. So again, fail in my opinion, just fail to get the only real reason. This idea that you're going to live forever is nonsense, and the idea that you would want to is you really have to be stupid. I mean, if you haven't seen what old age looks like, it's not a party.
I really don't think there's going to be, a mass abandonment of it. So my approach to this is hypocritical because here I am critiquing it, and yet I'm very interested in that community and walking straight into the portal effect willingly and just wondering how we can reduce pain using the blockchain. So is there anything it does have a lot of advantages. That's how these portals work. They give you an augmented version of something that you're naturally compelled to do, but that's how they suck you in. But
no, whatever, this whole blockchain thing, I just don't really understand how you think this is going to replace any functional systems that actually accomplish something. No, don't see it.
Is there anything that people who are here are interested in that's happening on the blockchain that's positive? What are your opinions on this? Can we mitigate the negative impact of it? Particularly the automation side, because if people adopt it en masse, which I think they will be drawn to instinctively, how can we deal with mass automation of decisions? Because this will be like, when you get an automated phone line and it doesn't have the choice you need, that will happen in terms of everything in human life. It will all be like that, I think, with blockchain.
Whatever that even means. The customers won't be happy and no one will fix it. Now, that won't happen either. It will be niche. Okay, there'll be a blockchain for every niche. Will have its own blockchain that has whatever numbers they want on their keypad, or they want just emoticons on their keypad. That's what will be on their keypad. It'll be Fox News, CNN. It'll just be agenda organizations for agenda, for the purpose of satisfying a niche. And yes, that will be divisive in the end. That will not do what we need to do, which is find some way to look at each other without throwing up. And we're not moving in that direction. But I don't think it's the blockchain's fault. So I think that's just scapegoating. It's a human failure, not the failure of technology. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to spend that much time on that. So where to go next? We can do the drunken peasants have done another one of the the fat fried freaks, fat fried fuckers, fat fried fuckheads, whatever. They did a new fat fried thing. So it's Caligula. So maybe we'll jump through it. Just try to do it quick. It's 2 hours. I mean, there's just no point really, but we'll see how far we get.
Like someone, they crucified them. They fucking had blood sports as their entertainment.
Well, Rome basically had a policy of what it would do was it would basically offer you a really good deal, like, hey, if you surrender and just do what we want and become like a client state of ours or something.
They had a
yes, that's right. They invaded countries and they didn't burn them down. They negotiated a deal that would be good for commerce and money making for all and all that kind of crap. They didn't make overt slaves of them. They made they gave them enough self-interest to make a deal where it enhanced productivity rather than destroyed productivity. And whatever, it's like all these great civilizations. They had their time, they had their good years, bad years, blah blah blah. History is not, in my opinion, a very good subject because it's all just kind of bullshit stories. And you see that with American history. You get this, they put on the no, don't tread on me kind of flag, and put that in the same category as like the Boston Tea Party, as if it was a fight against taxation. No taxation without representation, or kind of some kind of theme like that. Well, no, the truth was it was the cheaper tea in the harbor. It was a trade war, and the Americans didn't like the fact that the British tea company was strong and international and controlled the market, and they weren't getting their cut. And that's all it was really about. No high ideals involved, just graft and people saying, I want a cut. And all this talk about so America there wasn't none of this sacred honor crap. It was more about their sacred fortunes. They were all looking to own rather than rent. And that's all it was about. They didn't give a shit about the people. So, jumping ahead. Ooh, we could use more volume for sure. Well, I hope the volume wasn't that low in the other video.
Fucking had interest in defaming the Julian dynasty, decided to make Caligula some weirdo that made people shave their heads. It's hard to know.
The crowds that greeted him were quite extraordinary.
All right.
He was greeted
So they're playing some weirdo video of a Caligula documentary where a bunch of people who were supposed to have read all the gossip, the Star magazine from the Times and the Inquirer, and they have all the dirt, on all the emperors. And again, this is history, thousands of years old history. Fat chance you're getting anything like the real story. So, jumping ahead.
Yes.
Yep.
Who lived long after Caligula had died.
I think it's Suetonius and what's his name, like Dio or something.
Right, so they're talking like they knew all this stuff their whole life. Like this is something, oh yeah, I have all those guys right in my head, blah, blah, blah. All they did, they went on Wikipedia, right? You do some research on a subject. Now they're talking like they're all like, oh yeah, I learned that in grammar school. We did a whole thing on Caligula and Dionysi and Fugga and whatever. This is just such bullshit. Bullshit, I call like bullshit. The Wikipedia show. Maybe they should just change it, Wikipedia Live.
Dio.
Took his seat on a lofty platform
Maybe they can do a show on physics, and that'll be fun for me. You know, maybe they could invite me on a show about physics. That would be cool. How physics is full of shit.
And gave the soldiers the signal as if for battle, bidding the trumpeters urge them on. Then, all of a sudden, he ordered them to gather up the shells.
Oh, whatever. So the shell war. Okay, yeah. I mean, these are just stories that get way blown out of reality's proportions. You know, it's Jesus with his, you know, walking on water and making fish sandwiches. It's just bullshit.
Caligula's elite forces picked up shells in their helmets. They were sent back to Rome for display as the spoils of victory over the ocean.
Yeah, whatever. I don't care to know. Oh dear, that guy, that's the Egbert guy. I guess it's before he had his jaw removed. Eesh.
Unspeakably depressed. I walked out of the film after 2 hours of its 170-minute length.
So I think that is something he only did one time in his entire career.
Yes, that was on Saturday night as a line of hundreds of people stretched down Lincoln Avenue, waiting to pay $7.50 a piece. By the way, standard movie ticket prices at that time were $3. So
wow, so the movie stunk somehow. Okay, porn movie and whatever. Great, fantastic. But again, like I said, he died, this guy, yeah, wrong. But I mean, he had his whole jaw removed, really bad. He went through all kinds of horrible shit. And why people do that? Why do they do that? See, that's where I just don't get it. Just no. There's, you know, surrender's not a dishonorable thing. They're just going to kill you anyway.
Oh,
but the producers
they were charging a huge amount of money
premium.
to see this movie.
Yep.
$7.50 a piece to become eyewitnesses to shame.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Oh, phew, you said the word shame. At least they didn't say it. It smelled like skanky cunt. I mean, yeah, that would be my review.
Historians have some fragmented records of Caligula by his contemporaries, such as the orator Seneca, Pliny the Elder, and Philo of Alexandria. But unfortunately, most of the Caligula legend has come to us from one historian, Gaius Suetonius Tranquillus, who lived a century after Caligula.
Right, so that just makes so much sense. Let's talk about stories told by people about a story they heard when they were kids, about a story. I mean, you know, let's all tell fish stories. I can make up shit about my relatives or something. You know, I think my uncle was the real Captain America. I think.
And his face towards the ground, and he said, "Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your..."
Oh, please, I don't, no, thank you. No. Whatever that is, no.
Stop this mob from harming these angels.
Now, once Lot and his two daughters got to the mountain.
All right, so now it's a Sodom and Gomorrah story, and you know, people don't look or you get turned into salt or whatever when God finally blah 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 stoned them with whatever rock fire.
Some interesting stuff happened. I'm actually not. I'm finally gonna get a fucking break from reading this dry, boring ass book. Because I'm just going to show you a little 2-minute animation from Dark Matter 2525, who generously has allowed his clip to be played here on this show.
Cool.
So this is what happens next when
Gonna
Lot
be played on my show
escape.
now.
This is biblically
Cool.
accurate. Check it out.
It's like sucks.
Yeah, how shall we bear
Their tits
children?
really were that big,
because
too.
that's all women are good for, right? And there's no one here to fuck.
Shh! Daddy might hear.
Wait, I know. Let's fuck Daddy.
Oh, come on. He would never. Unless the writer of this story can invent a convoluted, unrealistic contrivance that would allow Daddy to retain his righteousness.
I know. We shall get him so drunk that he passes out, and then he won't know he's fucking us.
Yeah, but he's so old, and we're virgins. Won't it be difficult for him to...
Well, that's actually the...
The Bible does have, the Old Testament is just as wacky could be. You know, I mean, marrying your rape victims, and I mean, it's just silly stuff.
Least of thy problems, because drinking that much alcohol dilates the blood vessels in the penis, making it impossible to sustain an erection anyway, especially if he doesn't even know that he's having sex. And the older the man, the less alcohol it takes to cause this effect.
I don't think this is the Bible, but whatever. I don't think they did all this analyzing, but, you know, maybe.
So this plan is actually really, really stupid.
Oh, so I guess it won't work then.
No, it'll work. The writer of this story doesn't know anything about vasodilation.
Oh, cool. So you do him the first night, then tomorrow night we'll get him drunk again, and then it'll be my turn.
He totally won't suspect a thing.
At least until we're both totally rockin' matching baby bumps.
Well, he probably wouldn't knock both of us up on the first try, unless we're simultaneously ovulating.
Oh, so I guess it won't work after all.
No, actually, we'll get knocked up immediately.
You know, the writer of the story doesn't seem that bright.
Yep, we shall be one big happy family.
Abe, I'd like to introduce you to the family you convinced me to save.
Oh, very good.
This is Moab and Ben.
Hello there, kids.
This is their father, Lot, the only righteous man in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Pleased to meet thee, Lot.
Oh, and this is their grandfather, Lot, the only righteous man in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
Daddy tried to have us.
That's a little funny, but yeah, it's somebody else's clip and it's funny. Yeah, okay, not that funny though.
Provocative.
I mean, not that much.
Is that Lot?
Yeah, there he is.
Well, my daughter's over there, man.
Well, that's a reason not to get married right there, right? Yeah, so, whew, thank God I escaped.
If a fucking tornado goes through a junkyard, is you gonna make an airplane?
Universe, and there is no creator. The nice sterile term for this is evolution. But if there is no creator, then there are no creator given
It's not a
rights
sterile
upon...
term, it's a factual term.
Right, and evolution doesn't.
So it's now beardy people making fun of beardy people. So at least that's a little bit fun. Yeah. The bird, they're eating their own bile.
Give up God-given land to terrorists.
God-given.
That's enough
God-given?
of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yet again, if something's God-given, I want God to come down from heaven to give it.
Gosh, yet we pride ourselves in being a quote-unquote godly nation? Sorry to say, that was yesterday, and yesterday is gone.
So he's one of these guys, like, except for you, though, right, buddy?
I'm still a Christian.
I've got it figured out, but the rest of y'all think you godly? Let me tell you, you ain't.
Hell no.
Yeah, well, you people who think you're atheists don't have a clue either. So, I mean, it's just kind of funny. I mean, you understand evolution, and yet you don't understand the consequences of it and the obvious logical implications of our position here on Earth as the most intelligent beings on this planet meat grinder. And you don't seem to sense any kind of responsibility to do a damn thing but be gluttonous pig animals. You know, just be like the other, come up with a suitable animal metaphor. Tree sloth.
It's so stupid, man. You hear this shit over and over again, and it's like, if you drive down any street in America, if you want proof...
Oh, I just can't listen to Scotty. Just cannot do it.
Dozens of biblical citations about the importance of hospitality and how evil the Sodomites were.
Yet again, it's just a typical shit. It's let's use the Bible to prove the Bible is right. And, it all ultimately comes...
Whatever, Scotty again. No, thank you. Anyway, so, yeah, who cares? We've already done the Bible is a silly book. It's not even worth doing a show on silly books. It's worth trying to talk to religious kooks and explain that you're not doing the human any dignity, by perpetuating these silly fables as anything other than just silly little stories. No evidence, no reasoning in allowing your brain to think somehow because somebody says there's a God, now you're afraid. Oh, well, what if there's a God and I offend him? Well, what if you offend a God who couldn't give a shit about, offering you a fair game that sentences you to doom, before the game even starts, says you're already flawed and broken, and I'm watching you? I mean, what the hell is that? And you say, that's a good deal? I want to hang out with that fuckhead? I mean, come on. Don't be silly. A God that, again, gives us the capacity to make children so he can kill them overtly right in front of us or send them to hell. Yeah, I mean, what the fuck is that? It's so silly on its face. That's the conversation to have. Don't bother trying to, well, go ahead and bother. I mean, they're worthy of humiliation. I'm just saying this, it's more of the fun part. It's an indulgence, but we probably shouldn't go there. So anyway, I thought let's play one little bit of one of my videos. It's just randomly chosen here regarding to be pyroillogical, or to be not a very good title, have to concede. I didn't always, I didn't always win with my titles. Some good, some not so good. But anyway, some of these videos are, the walk and talk videos with this, they're really quite good. Swimming was very, very good for me. This seems way too wide a screen. But anyway.
Response video to Piro. Yeah. Well, fuck it. No, reaction video. Fuck the asshole. He doesn't deserve a response. Yay. Because he never, ever, ever, ever deals with previous points made. He just keeps talking like there was no counter.
Right. So, that is. It just, Piro, you have a conversation with him. You concede points, and then 2 hours later, he pretends he never even conceded the point. Just amazing. Such an asshole. All right, jumping ahead.
Don't mind this video and deal with the specific points that have been repeatedly made. He just keeps ignoring like he's never heard them. And it's just such fucking nonsense. How exactly do I stop my future existence by me personally not having a child? That is the question, okay? You can't stop slavery by not owning slaves yourself. That doesn't...
Right, you can't stop rape by not being a rapist. I mean, it just doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't prevent the harm. So again, these people who make arguments like that, well, just go be an antinatalist in your own corner of the universe, and therefore it's okay if we keep torturing kids over here. Just live on a planet where nobody molests children, and you'll just watch the planet where they do molest them, and you'll say it's okay because it's not happening in my backyard. Therefore, it's not happening. It's okay to have a nuclear disaster in somebody else's backyard. It's not okay to have one in my backyard or something like that. It's just so damn stupid.
Barrier to it, and we know that's how the world works. So this is just absolute nonsense. This is not a solution to my problem. This is not a solution to the problem antinatalists are attempting to resolve. Their own conduct is irrelevant to every aspect of the result.
Right, antinatalists didn't give birth to the people that exist now. Clearly, it was the non-antinatalists who were the one putting the antinatalists in jeopardy. I wasn't made by an antinatalist. Exactly the opposite kind of person made me. That's why they have to be stopped.
And it's a de facto obvious circumstance. I mean, it's just stupid. It's ludicrous to think that's a satisfactory middle ground or something. Oh yeah, no, I'll be opposed to slavery and do absolutely nothing about it. Yeah, I'll be opposed to segregation in the South, and but no, I'll do nothing about it. I just won't be a Southerner, and
yeah, I could use more telling examples. I could have said, you know, I'll be opposed to child abuse, and I won't do anything to stop it. You know, that's what it really is. That's what procreation is. It's a molestation, throwing a child at risk for your own whatever personal ambitions or something.
it won't segregate. That'll solve the problem. Oh, yeah, so easy. Gee, I guess you think all the world's problems are that fucking simple. Yeah, just say something stupid, sit down, and pretend the problem's gone. And then have a fucking kid, recklessly and stupidly. Brilliant. Yeah, we need more of that in the world.
Well, as I've pointed out many times regarding Piro is one of these people who lays the eggs on a pile of shit and then promises, well, someday they'll build nests. You know, not my job. Someday. Somehow the nest they'll build in the future is going to do the people in the past any good. And it's going to somehow make them, you know, into the kind of civilization or the kind of people needed, the future's going to need. And it's not going to. The shit people aren't never going to be nest people. And you certainly can't retroactively make them civilized.
That sure fucking works. And so anyway, this is the basic outline. Is that there's a few people that keep doing this shit. I noticed that, oh fuck, I'm not gonna remember his name. Yaki Kapaki. Well, anyway, the kid that does the drawings. Nice kid, but he made some sort of thing calling it fascism. You know, if the anti-natalists were to impose on the natalists. And again, I just make the argument, what's the fucking point? What's the
Yeah, who's committing the first crime, okay? You're saying, you know, you can't, the rapists aren't entitled, you know, to not be imposed upon because their action is an imposition. You can't stop the imposition without imposing on the rapist, technically. There's no way to stop the rapist any other way than to impose on the rapist. Because the rapist isn't going to stop unless he's imposed upon. That's sort of the problem here. So at some point, push has to come to shove, and you have to have the fight, and you have to, you know, hopefully the right side wins and all that kind of shit. But yeah, if people are going to be defiant and claim a right to be abusive, your responsibility is to say, gee, you're not a nice person. Your responsibility is to do something more than that.
There's no halfway. There's no middle ground that solves the problem. No, this is the rules of the game.
There's no compromise here, you know. There really isn't. There's no... You can't do both things. You can't satisfy both parties. You can't protect victims who don't want to be playing in a game and say you're still going to play the game and still going to put them at risk. I mean, that's not a compromise. The compromise can't be that somehow, well, just agree to be abused. Fuck you. No, I'm not agreeing to it. I'm not agreeing. I'm not accepting. So it's an unacceptable compromise. There's just there's no middle ground. There's right and there's wrong. And imposing is wrong. They commit the first crime. The only way to stop the imposition is through imposition.
Okay, I don't prevent my existence as long as you fuckers keep thinking you have a right to create me. And that's the truth of it. Simple. I can't win your way. I can only lose your way. So isn't that convenient? You create a compromise where I guaranteed lose. Yeah, fuck you. So again, we're back to the question. Where's the right of the dissenter? Where's the right of the individual being imposed upon to veto your frivolous and silly game? And that's what it comes down to. What I've suggested is that...
Right, so there's roadkill, and the roadkill is sort of, we're the zombie representation for the roadkill. We're the representation for the people who can't speak, the people who have died horribly, suicide, people who got killed before they could voice their opinion, the people who lived a long life and figured it out at the end that, yeah, it was all made out of shit. we're all the only voice they have. And there's no point in having the voice if the deal is we ignore the victims. We ignore their testimony where they say, you don't have a right to keep doing this to me. You don't have a right to keep pulling these straws, sticking them in my pocket and say, live another pointlessly stupid, futile life on planet Earth, recognizing that it's suffering. That is, it's traps you're going to fall in and just traps to avoid. And there really isn't a good thing here anywhere. There's no necessity for your existence whatsoever. You will not fix something we didn't break. The only thing here to fix is the problems we fucking make.
Put somebody here to do the dirty work you won't fucking do. I mean, you fuckers.
Yeah, that's another Pyrrho thing, you know, have kids because they're going to be socially responsible and they'll do all the work I never did, you know. They'll be the soldier I never was. Yeah, more just bullshit from people.
Oh, maybe some of the world's problems can be cured in a generation. Yeah, all of them can be cured in a fucking generation. If you assholes would grow the fuck up. Because most of them, 90%, 99% of the world's problems are a contrivance of human irresponsibility.
And tradition, right. It's these silly optimistic notions that it doesn't matter how often, you know, just simple logical equations where, you know, we have this thing called the Olympics and we essentially celebrate people with joy and all this bullshit, okay, the triumphant. And they just totally ignore what it costs. The thousands of kids who failed dismally, had their little hearts broken to little pieces because they pulled a ligament in their leg and therefore couldn't be the Olympic champion they were destined to be. They felt they really should have been. All of that failure is ignored, you know, celebrating the one that got mostly lucky. Mostly. Lucky to have enough wealth, essentially, to have their life financed enough so they could spend all their time training, doing the thing they loved. You know, just all the resources wasted, all of the lives wasted for a futile and pointless activity that doesn't cure cancer. It doesn't do anything constructive. That kind of illogic, that kind of traditional life is the enemy. It's so fucking destructive. And that's all people live for, are these silly, fake idol worship.
Oh, let's build our house in a 20-year flood zone. I mean, after all, it only floods every 20 years. Fuck.
Now, I mean, yes, the stupidity of it. Let's rebuild New Orleans, even though it's sinking. It isn't going to get better. It's not going to rise out of the delta. It's not going to survive the delta. Let's rebuild it. It's even in worse condition than it was when it was first built. Let's rebuild it when it's even worse. This is so fucking stupid.
You know, what the fuck? Yeah, so disaster strikes. Duh. Yeah, let's watch billions and billions of dollars worth of resources get fucking wiped out in New Orleans. Yeah, and 4 days later, let's start rebuilding. Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it's so damn stupid. But anyway, moving on.
You, intellectually, physically, in any way, to take care of the disaster dice you're rolling. What? How do you make it up? How do you undo it? Is there an undo button? Is there a fail safe? And don't be giving me...
Yeah, so this whole idea that people walk into this risk, you see what's in the world. I mean, kids born in horrible shape, horrible things that can happen. And to pretend those snake eyes aren't on the dice. I mean, to just sit there and say, I'm going to roll these dice, and if, well, snake eyes happens, well, I'll, you know, cry a little, and that'll be, you know, then I'll get over it. What do you people? How does somebody rationally do that? I mean, it'd be an interesting thought experiment, or I mean, it'd be an interesting actual experiment, is to take kids, and this it's too cruel to actually do to kids, but I just mean it would be interesting to see what the effects would be, even adults, but kids will fall for it, and put dice in their hand, and say based on what the dice roll, we're going to do something to somebody else, and there's bad things that'll happen to somebody else based on what's on the dice. And just see how many kids will say, how many it will occur to them to say, well, can I not roll the dice? Because, I really don't, it's nice that you're going to give cookies to one kid if I get, boxcars, but the fact that you're going to do something, like break their eardrum or something if I roll snake eyes, how many kids would say, I don't want to play. It's a stupid game. Only an idiot would do this unless you're pointing a gun at my head. You're going to force me to roll these dice? What's my penalty if I don't roll them? Oh, I can live a perfectly satisfactory life based on my own ambitions rather than exploiting some child that I'm going to basically just molest through life? Yeah. Fuck.
Your shit that, oh, well, people could have the right to die. Yeah, right.
That's another one. They always promise this. Well, in the future, they don't fix anything now and say, okay, look, we fixed it. Okay, you have the right to die now, so it ain't as bad. You're not going to get tortured. If you want to get out, you can get out. They don't fix any of these problems. They just keep promising somehow, oh, yeah, we're going to take care of the victims. Yeah, you don't take care of anything like that. And it's not going to do all the people in the mental institutions, the other places that should be peacefully put out of their misery, all the people in your jails and the rest of it that you should have the balls to just say they're too broken and give them a peaceful exit. You don't have the guts to fix any of these problems. You just torture things, you fucking idiots.
It's going to be, because it is the future. The victims of this bullshit now know they're victims. The people who get the burden, who get fucked, they now understand the game's being played here. And they understand that all this is for nothing. And all these lazy asses keep just laying eggs in absolute shit and then making excuses for walking away. They don't take care of anything. Yeah, Barklord made some kind of comment about...
Yes, I mean, look, the village isn't taking care of the problems. We don't even take care of the disabled. We don't take care of anything here. Your war veterans, all the rest. It's all just talk. And completely disproportional. One victim gets it all, like the 9/11 victims. They get it all, $1 billion paycheck. Their life can't help but be a blessing to everybody. Or their death can't help but be a huge blessing to everybody around them because yes, their welfare is secured. Where if on the same day you're killed by a drunk driver, you're just a huge liability that isn't producing an income anymore, and your life insurance doesn't pay for your funeral. I mean, it's just such bullshit. We live in such a bullshit civilization.
How parents do all these wonderful things, and even though they're irresponsible to start with, they do all the blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? For every one of those, I'd argue there's at least two parents who don't do a fucking thing. They get drunk and drink beer. They get divorced. They don't pay their child support.
And they swear a lot and do all kinds of buggery things right in front of their kids. And yeah, they're horrible parents.
I mean, fuck you and that shit. The majority of these breeders don't take care of their responsibility. They let society...
Yeah, they don't even spend any time thinking about it. What about my kid's first broken heart and all the risks? I mean, how the hell you could sit there and, oh yeah, it's fun to have kids. It's fun to, to watch your 16-year-old son go out there and drive in the car and all that. No, that can't. For any rational person, that cannot be fun. It's going to be terrifying.
They raise their kids, and that's why their kids turn out to be the little fucking monsters they turn out to be. The delusional half-wits commenting on YouTube. Fuck.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, so back to the point. yeah, there's not going to be, you know, even conference report, their little, I don't know, whatever it was, poetry thing, I'd even call it.
Ah, well, we can live without the poetry thing, I guess, right? So, last little bit, and I'll spare you any further.
So anyway, really fucking, I'm just waiting. That's all I can do. Wait.
It's kind of interesting to watch some of these walk and talks, because I start off kind of relaxed, and I start talking about the subject. I'm starting to get more and more irritated, more and more irritated. Probably wasn't a very good thing to do on my way to work, but anyway, it was funny.
But I'll be back. If I'm dead tomorrow, there'll be another me, and another me, and eventually...
Yeah, so I'm just implying the fact that there's nothing unique about my capacities, and there'll be other people that will have the capacity to realize that this wasn't a game worth playing, and they'll know it early, and they'll have a while to think about it, and you know, and then they'll try to explain it to people like you and say, don't you understand? It's too expensive, way too expensive. Your little delusions of accomplishment and purpose, way too expensive. So anyway, probably enough. Yeah, I'd say mostly. Random shot in the middle there, and they're swimming. Yay. So, yeah, long video, I think. Sorry about that. But, you know, shit happens, and it's a good test to see if the little microphone thing repair, temporary, come up with something better. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, see if it works better, see if the sound quality is better anyway, and then we can move on from there, and then you'll have something else to complain about. So, till the next time, and I hope both microphones are working. This one's looking like it's not working now. Well, that's depressing as fuck. Oh, there's nothing playing on the video. Yeah, that's the audio out. Sorry. Alright, never mind. It's probably fine. Whatever it is, it's going to get uploaded, I think. Oh, I forgot to put the what the fuck in here. Well, I'm not adding it now. How about that? I thought I could do that after the video, and I just realized, no, you have to do that while you're making the video. You have to put that in there. What the fuck, number 520, I think. Yeah. No. Shucks. Anyway, till next time.